his scores didn't matter to Arnie's Army. A few years later, in 2004, Arnold, who was then 74, played his 50th and last Masters.
Hello there, and welcome
5 years
to the golf
after
club.
that, in 2009, Gary
to be out
Player,
today,
then 73, played his
See if we can do it there on the
52nd
tee.
and last Masters. What other sport can somebody play for half a century? My heart rate was elevated as Paul and I walked up the 17th fairway because I'd gotten so intense as the round progressed. Fluff's jokes relaxed me, and so did the brief conversations Paul and I had. Now it was time to take my heart rate down, because I was about to play. I was aware of the level I needed my heart rate to be to play shots,
yards, I'd say,
when to get jacked up, and when to calm down. There was a certain level I wanted to play at when it came to the energy I needed to put into my swing. I controlled my heart rate through my breathing. I was able to get into an almost meditative state on the course when required. I parred 17 and 18 to shoot 66 and take a 3-shot lead over the field. This was a big improvement over the first 2 times I played the Masters. This was a big improvement over the first 2 times I played the Masters when I didn't break par in the 6 rounds I played. One important difference was that I was now a professional golfer and was playing many more tournaments than when I was in college. I was pulling all-nighters to study for finals at Stanford when I came to Augusta before, which put me at a significant disadvantage playing against the tournament-tough pros. I could hit all the balls I wanted, for hours and hours, and putt on the floor of our volleyball court at Stanford, but there was never a substitute for competition. This time, the tournaments I had played before and won suggested I was properly prepared and ready to compete at Augusta. After my round, I went to the range with Butchie and Fluff to work on my swing. I had hit a couple of iffy shots, like the drive on 9, and I didn't want to leave until I got the shots out of my system and understood what had gone wrong. I worked on moving the ball left to right, a shot I struggled with when I needed to hit it, and was able to do that when I got into a better position with my hands and shaft on the backswing. I hit a couple of bags of balls, and then Jerry drove me home. Well, not home right away. First, there was that stop at Arby's, an absolute must, now that I'd played well for 2 straight days. Going over the round later at the house, hole by hole, I concluded that I had played smart, strategic golf as I had planned coming into the Masters. It was the style that Nicklaus advocated at Augusta, where he knew so many players would beat themselves by making mental errors and taking unnecessary chances. I wasn't right on it yet, given how young I was, but I'd learned that it was important to play efficient golf.
I take back that last comment.
It didn't have to be razzle-dazzle
golf, and I didn't need to go at pins that were inaccessible. That's going to make your shot go a little more to the left than you normally would. Jack always said you would have a lot of decent birdie looks if you hit the middle of the greens at Augusta. I tried to do that on most of the holes, except that I enjoyed using the slopes to sometimes take the ball nearer the hole after it landed in a safe spot. I was driving the ball well, so I knew I could take care of the par 5s and make a few birdies on them, or maybe also an eagle or 2. My plan for Saturday was for more of the same. Maybe you could call it boring golf in that I wasn't forcing things as I had done in 95 and 96. I was hardly a veteran at Augusta, but I was starting to understand the course and to plot my way around properly. I was doing what I had come to Augusta to do. Maybe people didn't like it when I said after the second round that I didn't feel different leading at the Masters than I did when I was leading at other tournaments I'd won as a pro. I felt the same because I wasn't playing for the crystal, and I wasn't playing for the green jacket, and I wasn't playing to be the first minority golfer to win the Masters. That was all there, but it was background. I was playing for the joy of competition and for the hunt, but the hunt was to bring out whatever talent I had. The hunt wasn't for a trophy. If I did what I felt I could do, everything else, all those honors this
and
one's
gifts
looking
and
dialed
trophies
in,
would take care of themselves.
Nice. And we have a 27-footer from here to the
Chapter
cup.
8, Saturday, April 12th, 1997. If I needed any extra motivation for my third round, Colin Montgomery provided it during his media conference the day before. Monty was in second place 3 shots behind me, and so we were going to play together in the last twosome on Saturday just after 2 o'clock. At the press conference, Monty was asked about our prospects for Saturday, and he spoke his mind, saying that everybody would see in the third round what I was made of, and that his experience might be a key factor. There was no question about it. Monty had much more experience. I didn't know Monty at the time, and I came to like him over the years. We've battled quite a bit around the world, and he's been fun to play with. But I took it to heart that neither of us had won a major championship when we went out there on Saturday. And if anything, his comments only strengthened my resolve to play my best golf the rest of the way. I went through my warm-up routine and couldn't wait to get to the first tee and into the third round. The last thing Butchie did as we left the range was to remind me of Monty's comments the day before. He could tell Monty might just have sparked something in me. I started par birdie and I was fired up. I shot a 4 under 32 on the front side. This was only the third round, but it felt good to be playing so well and increasing my margin not only over Monty, but also over the entire field. I wanted to keep taking care of the par 5s as I did on the front 9 when I birdied the second and 8th holes, and to birdie other holes when opportunities presented themselves. The way I played the third hole was a good example of that. I hit a 3-iron off the tee and then a wedge that went over the green to the right. That was a serious mistake because I had a brutal pitch back to the hole. Looking at it, you wouldn't think it was that hard. There's the green, there's the hole. And I have enough room to pitch the ball and put a bit of draw spin on it so that it would catch and sneak on down near the hole to where I'd have a short par putt or maybe a tap-in. But I didn't spin the ball as much as I wanted to, which annoyed me. I had a hill between me and the hole, and a slope off that hill that went left to right. I was trying to kill the shot with that bit of spin. It would have softened the blow coming into the hill so that it wouldn't have been as hot coming across the crest, and then it would have taken the break to the right and finished near the hole. But it ran on by because I didn't impart the precise amount of spin that the shot required. The ball ended up running straight about 8 feet by the hole. When I thought about it later, I realized that I did well just to get it there. That's how ticklish the shot was. I made the putt for par, though. I walked to the next tee and told myself, okay, that could have been nasty, but you made par. 1 under after 3 holes. I was enjoying the round in Monty's company. He was respectful and complimentary and would say, nice putt,
decent
good shot.
There,
that's the way golf is supposed to be.
Where you're
I did
from.
The same. We had a lot of banter going back and forth, but he knew pretty quickly that he was in a heavyweight battle. He probably also realized that his comments were giving me extra motivation in the round. He was walking with his head down and his shoulders slumped. Meanwhile, I kept pushing myself to handle the par 5s and any situations that came up during the round. It didn't hurt that the greens were soft because they had absorbed some rain, so I could attack some pins where I felt that was warranted. The ball was picking up some mud, so I hit some low hooks off the tees to run the ball out and allow the mud to come off. I was competitive, simple as that. If you challenged me, I wasn't going to back down. Mom knew that, Pop knew that, and that's why they weren't concerned after I shot that 40 on the front 9 in the first round. They believed in me and had always told me I could do things on the course that nobody else could do.
And with that,
I'm sure I internalized that self-belief. I didn't believe all the people who were saying and writing that things would be different for me when I turned pro.
We got hole number 4.
Why should it be? It was still golf. The ball didn't know I had been pro for only 7 months, and it didn't know I was only 21. It didn't know I was playing my first Masters as a professional. I'm sure Nicklaus thought this way at the 1986 Masters, when he was 46 years old. The golf ball didn't know he was 46. Nicklaus rarely received criticism, and for good reason. But he wasn't playing very well when he showed up at the 1986 Masters. And Tom McCollister, a writer for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution and somebody Jack respected, didn't believe he had enough game to win. He wrote an article in the paper the Sunday before Masters Week in which he said, Nicklaus is gone. Done. He just doesn't have the game anymore. It's rusted from lack of use. He's 46, and nobody that old wins the Masters. That was true. Nobody that old had won the Masters. But so what? Did it really matter that Nicklaus hadn't won a major in 6 years, or a PGA Tour event in 2 years, Or that in 7 tournaments on tour that year, his best finish was a tie for 39th? Jack didn't believe any of that mattered. He was coming to Augusta and the Masters, a place and tournament he knew very well, where he had won the Masters 5 times. He said at Augusta, "I still want to win and think I can. If nothing else, I'm going to do it just to show you guys I still can."
Okay,
it was accurate, though, that he wasn't playing well
makeable.
leading up to the Masters. But Jack Grout, his teacher since he was 10 years old, was in his corner. He saw Grout the week before the Masters, and they decided he was using his hands too much in his swing. He needed to get more synchronization between his hands, arms, and body. There were similarities between what he was trying to do at 46 and what Butchie and I had worked on since we started together when I was 17. Jack saw the article that McAllister had written because a friend staying with him in their rented house had put it on the fridge. Jack couldn't
1 under
miss
for
it.
the round.
Then he shot a final round 65 and won his 6th Masters. It wasn't long after he sat down in the media
Fifth
center
hole coming
that he
up.
asked playfully, "Where's Tom McAllister?" The writer was finishing a story and he showed up a few minutes later. Nicholas said, "Hi, Tom. Thanks." And McAllister replied, "Glad I could help." Everything was said in good humor, but everybody in Jack's orbit that week knew that the article saying he was finished had given him a shot of motivation. I enjoyed reading about that Masters and that incident as I got older and thought more about playing in the Masters. Then Monty hit me with his comment on the Friday evening before we played. Perfect. Butchie could see it in my eyes as we walked from the range toward the first tee that I was itching to play and to take on the course, Monty, and the rest of the field. But Monty especially. I finished the front 9 with a 2-putt birdie on the 8th and a par on the 9th to shoot 32. 4 under for the front side and 12 under for the tournament. 45 holes of the Masters were over for me, and I was making excellent progress. I wanted to take it as deep as I could, though, without taking any chances or making mistakes. Nicholas had shot 74 and was talking to the media behind the 18th green as I walked from 9 to 10. That was the first of a few times we would cross each other's paths at a major. I was ready to tee off in the second round of the 2000 U.S. Open at Pebble when a huge roar erupted from the 18th green. It was Jack. He had knocked it on the green in 2 for the first time in his career. There was a time nobody could hit that green in 2, but the ball was going farther and the equipment was more forgiving, and so Jack thought he would give it a go. That was his last U.S. Open. 2 months later, I was playing the PGA Championship at Valhalla in Louisville. I was paired with him for the first 2 rounds. We were coming up to 18
that was a swing.
In the second round when he said, "Let's finish this correctly," meaning we should each make a birdie. He hit his 3rd on the par 5 close to the hole and made birdie, and I also made birdie.
About 130 yards
During
out.
that round, Jack was talking about different generations and passing the torch. He told me he had played with Gene Sarazen in one of his last majors, and there I was, paired up with Jack in his last PGA. That was a special moment. The fairway on the 11th hole was so wide in 1997 that I could blast my tee shot down the right side. I hit it slightly farther right than I intended, but it didn't matter, because there was room in that area. I had only a 9-iron in, which I hit according to plan, below the hole, leaving me 8 feet for birdie.
And yeah, I think you could
I was
two putt
pleased
from
to
here.
see the ball finish that close to the hole, but it would have been okay with me if it had finished 15 feet short. The point was to be below the hole. I preferred to have a putt of 15 feet from below the hole than 6 feet above the hole. I'd hit a similar shot on the 7th hole where my sand wedge finished 12 feet below the hole, and I made that for birdie. Below the hole, below the hole, below the hole. That was my theme. This was the only way to score at the Masters, but I didn't have the distance control or the half shots when I played the Masters twice as an amateur. Butchie and I worked until I got to where I could hit what Fluff called feeders.
3 under for the round.
Ball toward the hole, using the green slopes rather than firing it right at the flag without much distance control.
Nice bird
I'd
on
left
that last
myself
hole.
too many
Let's see
putts
another
from
one.
above the hole in the 95 and 96 Masters. I sometimes hit a short iron I thought was perfect, but then looked up to see that the ball had carried an extra 15 yards. Good luck at Augusta with that little distance control. There were times, though, when it was tough to leave the ball below the hole, sometimes because of the pin position or because I was hitting a longer club into the green
here.
The greens are at least big enough that you can go at them with a longer club, not that I had that many long irons or fairway woods into even the par fives. But on the 13th, I did. I had 205 yards to carry the water
next one's for birdie.
and 236 yards to the hole after hitting 3-wood off the tee. The pin was back left and sitting on a knob. I hit 4-iron but bailed out to the left in a swale there. I'd never practiced that shot, not from the downslope in the swale. I'd practiced from the bowl itself or chipped it from there, but not from the far side. I didn't think I would ever hit the ball there. Many of the spectators who will never get a chance to play the course, and even some of my friends who would later play Augusta with me, couldn't have understood how hard that shot was until they played from there. It was one of those Augusta shots that television can't do justice to.
And that'll keep you at 3 under for the round.
I hit such a good little shot there, a little bump spinner, just to get it within 10 feet of the hole.
Okay, it's time to send this ball on its way.
But I misread the putt, which didn't help, when I hit exactly the putt I wanted at the inside left. The putt broke left, so I made par. That was one par 5 I didn't take care of, but I felt good about the pitch shot. It was one of the best I had hit on any course, and as time passed, one of the best I hit at Augusta. But it wasn't the best. Even the pitch and run that I holed from behind the 16th green on the last day of the 2005 Masters wasn't the best, as dramatic as it looked, with the ball twisting almost 90 degrees after I hit my spot and then dropping into the hole after hesitating a second and looking like it would stop.
All right,
the greatest pitch
yards
I ever hit at Augusta was one I hit at the 6th hole in the early 2000s in a Masters that I didn't win. The pin was back left, and I had hit my tee shot way to the back right of the green. I couldn't putt from there because of where the pin was. I had to pitch across a corner of the fringe. I took my sand wedge out because I could put cut spin on it, whereas I couldn't put as much spin with my 60-degree wedge because of the extra loft. I played a little cut spin pitch shot from on the green that held up and then rolled down.
Could be in the rough here.
I left myself on top of the ridge about 4 feet from the hole. That was one of the most satisfying pitches I have ever hit at Augusta, probably the best as far as the difficulty of pulling it off. It's not too often that you get to chip off a green at Augusta. I did make birdie on the 15th, where I pulled my drive and was slightly blocked out by the big tree on the left side. I didn't want to chip a shot down the fairway short of the water because that leaves a shot that is one of the most treacherous not only at Augusta, but also in all of golf. It's sharply downhill, and if I chose that route, I could easily spin the ball too much on that kind of a shot. The shot looks easy on television because the steep slope isn't apparent. You could spin it back into the water, or, trying to make sure you got it on the green, you could hit it over and have a scary shot back up the hill behind the green.
At 3 under for
that
the round.
Wasn't a shot I wanted. I had no alternative but to hook a 6-iron around the tree.
We have the 9th hole coming up.
Couldn't aim at the green on that angle, but had to play toward the bunker on the right side. It was a trouble shot, but that was okay. I could really feel a trouble shot and often hit some of my best shots when I was in recovery mode. The 6-iron curved back and finished on the back edge of the green about 35 feet from the hole. 2 putts later, I had my birdie. I hadn't birdied the 13th, but I had made birdies on 3 of the par 5s. I was taking care of them, or nearly enough, as was my plan. After parring 14 through 17, I got to the 18th tee,
Very nice.
6 under for the day,
looking at around 175 yards to the pin.
The 17th was a prime example of a hole where I needed to stick to my game plan, but I could easily have been tempted to take a chance. I had 76 yards to the hole after my drive, but the hole was only 4 yards behind the big, steep bunker on the right front. It wasn't smart to try to leave the ball between the hole and the bunker because there was so little margin for error. I played well past the hole, took my 2-putt par, and moved on. I hit driver off the 18th tee, and then sand wedge from 109 yards to get to the back fringe on the right side. The ball had a lot of spin on it, and it grabbed into the turf and rolled down to within a foot of the hole.
And we have a 27-footer from here to the cup.
11 pars and 7 birdies for 65. That was the kind of golf I had been working toward. Monty and I shook hands on the 18th green. His 74 had put him 12 shots behind me after starting the round 3 shots behind. He was beaten up but cordial. I liked the way he played, especially because his swing was so repetitive. You could see that even when he didn't have a good day. Monty hit a cut out there all the time and was one of the best drivers I had played with. He wasn't overly long, and when he didn't cut it as much, and he was feeling good and can turn it over or hit a straight ball, he could get it out there. Otherwise, he went to his slap cut.
And that'll keep you at 3 under for the round.
The media wanted to talk to Monty, and he accepted their invitation, as disappointed in his round as he was.
Here we go.
He gave them what they wanted, the straight goods as he saw the situation, just as he had after the second round. There is no chance humanly possible that Tiger is going to lose this tournament, Monty said. Somebody mentioned that Norman had lost a 6-shot lead the previous year. Monty came up with, "This is different. This is very different. Faldo is not lying second for a start. Costantino Rocca was second, 9 shots behind me. And Greg Norman is not Tiger Woods." The comment was cutting to Norman, but that was how Monty felt. My interview lasted quite a while.
Be in the fairway.
I was informed of Monty's comments, which I said were kind, but the tournament wasn't over yet, even though I was being asked what size jacket I wore.
All right, looking at 150 yards-ish.
42 long, I thought. It was too early to be talking about putting on the green jacket. Sure, I had a big lead, but the tournament was 72 holes, not 54. It wasn't over yet. I planned to go home, review my third round, and make some plans for Sunday. I didn't think they would be much different from what they had been Saturday. I also had something to fall back on from when I had a 6-shot lead going into the last round of the Asian Honda Classic. I played one of my best rounds to that point, and I'd won by 10 shots. I planned to think about that Saturday night.
Okay, but an 18-footer
it was almost like
here.
I was going to hypnotize myself into playing well with a big lead. Chapter 9, Sunday, April 13th, 1997. This was what I had worked for. A 9-shot lead with 1 round to go, a situation any golfer would dream of heading into the last round. At the same time, it would be a nightmare to lose such a lead like Norman had the year before. Losing that big a lead, even though I was still young and relatively inexperienced at Augusta, would follow me the rest of my career. My plan was simple. Make no bogeys and handle the par 5s and always play the shot, so if I miss it, I missed it in the right spot. If I made no bogeys, Costantino would have had to shoot 63 to tie me. If I handled the par 5s and made a couple of birdies, he would have had to shoot 61. Nobody had ever shot 61 in the Masters. Nobody had ever shot 62 in the Masters, or any other major. I'd read and seen enough about the Masters to know that it was possible to lose a big lead. The 6-shot lead that Greg Norman had lost was the most obvious, but there were also other times a big lead had evaporated. Seve in 1980 had a 7-shot lead going into the last round.
Well, I guess he can't hit all the fairways.
Would he lose that big a lead, or at least that's what everybody assumed. He'd won the Open Championship the year before, and sure, he had only just turned 23 during the Masters, but he was already a superstar. His 7-shot lead increased to 10 as he headed into Amen Corner on that Sunday after he shot 33 on the front side. But his lead was only 3 over the Australian player Jack Newton by the time Seve had finished the 13th hole. Crazy things could happen down there in Amen Corner, big numbers, birdies and eagles that could lead to big shifts on the leaderboard. Seve got himself together and ended up winning by 4 shots, but it definitely wasn't a walk in the park for him. He was asked what he was thinking after he lost those 7 shots and said, "The fight was on the inside for me. What I say was son of beach. Moving forward to the 2016 Masters, look what happened to Jordan Spieth. He was 5 shots ahead after the front 9 the last day, and he then bogeyed the 10th and 11th holes and made a quad on the 12th after hitting his tee shot into Rays Creek, then took a drop and hit another ball in there. Meanwhile, Danny Willett was birdieing the 13th and 14th ahead of him. It took all of 40 minutes for Spieth to lose 8 shots, and eventually Willett won. Writing from the vantage point of 20 years after I won the 1997 Masters, I see the lessons of Augusta keep repeating themselves. My dad was right when we spoke that Saturday night. I would have to play an efficient last round and not get caught up in anything except trying to execute my plan. It had been only 1 year since I had taken a 9-shot lead into the last round of the NCAA championships at the honors course near Chattanooga and shot 80. I still won the individual title by 3 shots, but 80? I was angry and disappointed in myself. I knew something about efficiency, having learned a good lesson when I was 11 years old and playing the Optimus Junior World Championship at Mission Bay Golf Course in San Diego. I came up against a kid who was a few inches taller than I was, and he looked strong. He drove the green on the first hole, a short par 4. I had never seen a kid my age hit the ball that far, and it threw me completely off my game. I basically quit after his tee shot because I felt I couldn't beat him. When I told my dad what had happened later, after he got home from work, he asked what I made on the first hole. I made par. He asked what the other kid made. He made birdie. I had mentally quit for the round. Right then and there, Pop told me I couldn't control what anyone else did, not in golf and not in life. The only things I could control were my heart, my will, and my effort and my own skill. That was part of being efficient, or maybe even ruthless. I then won the Junior World the next year, and I won it in every age bracket after that. If I did fail in a tournament, and I did, that was okay as long as I tried my best. Mom and Dad never made me feel pressure to succeed. My job was to give it everything I had on every shot. Their constant encouragement and belief in me gave me a quiet, strong confidence that I could not only win, but also dominate. Nothing changed in my routine. We had gone to Arby's on the way home after the 3rd round as usual. Then the night before the final round, I slept really well, getting 8 or 9 hours. I would usually sleep this well only when I took a lead into the final round of a tournament. My mind was at ease, and I had no concerns about my game. There wasn't much to worry about because I didn't think my swing or concentration would leave me. I knew that anything could go wrong any time in golf, but that was a distant thought.
4 under for the round.
By the time I went to bed, I had banished the notion from my mind that I could lose a 9-shot lead. My sleeping patterns had started changing when I went to Stanford because our team was always on the road. We didn't have matches at home, and Stanford prided itself on putting a semester's load of work into a quarter. There was only one way, to pull all-nighters. I often pulled 2 or 3 all-nighters in a row to try to catch up. I likened it to when somebody was studying to be a doctor and working 20 hours a day during residency. You had no choice, and you learn not to sleep. I was also competing against people who were smarter than I was. Stanford was full of brilliant students, and they didn't have traveling obligations. How was I going to compete against them? I was traveling to play in college tournaments while still trying to keep up with my studies.
So we have about
165 yards which only made it that much more difficult to keep up. It was another challenge, and I accepted it. I didn't necessarily like it, but I wasn't going to flunk out. Nevertheless, I loved Stanford, and I missed it. I got to the range my usual hour and 20 minutes ahead of my time and set up at the far left. Butchie was there, Fred Couples was at that end, and we joked around while I warmed up. I was eager to get the round started, a round that my dad said the night before at the house would be the hardest one of my life. He was tired after the long week, but he wanted to be sure we had a talk before the last round. He had always been there for me, and he was going to make sure he was at my side the night before I played the final round. I went into his room late at night to check up on him. everyone had gone to bed. We were going through the rundown of the tournament, through 3 rounds, when he brought up the idea that the last 18 holes would be the most difficult I had ever faced. He was trying to help me see that it could be hard work to do everything the right way and not get lackadaisical because of a big lead. I had faced tough competition before, but in match play. If I made a 12 on a hole in match play, it was no big deal. I lost 1 hole, who cares? I could come back on the next hole and win that one. Pop told me I had everything to gain and also everything to lose, and that I should think only about each moment and each shot and not ahead. Do that, he said, and I would get the job done. He wanted me to go into my world and focus on what I needed to do. I should be myself.
Nice putt,
and if I could do that, the last round would be one of the most rewarding I had ever played.
That'll keep you at 4 under
My
for the
dad
round.
knew me so well, and he knew how to say the right thing at the right time.
14th hole
After we
coming
lost
up.
him in 2006, I missed that the most. I knew him really well, too. We could get on each other and talk about anything we wanted. He made sure from when I was a kid that he didn't talk down to me, and he went so far as to lean down to my height when I was a little guy, something I do with Sam and Charlie. We planned strategy at tournaments as far back as when I was 5 years old. There are pictures of me standing on a course with my golf bag on my shoulders, and there's my dad bending down to speak to me at eye level. I tried not to think too much about my dad as I prepared mentally for the last round after our talk on Saturday night.
Pretty deep stuff here.
Thoughts of him came and went,
give it a good
which was
hack.
fine.
Let's put it in the right direction.
That would have made me too emotional, and I needed to keep my feelings at bay. I needed to do everything I could to give myself the best chance of playing a clinical round of golf, to be that cold-blooded assassin. I could have easily gotten too emotional heading into the last round if I had thought too much about my dad. I wanted to do him and my mom proud, but to do that, I needed to create some emotional distance for Sunday. It wasn't easy, because Pop was not feeling well during the tournament. There were moments when he was himself, but he was out of it for most of the tournament as he drifted off to sleep. Part of the task I set for myself Sunday was to let thoughts of what was swirling around me drift through my mind. It would have been foolish of me and not productive to try to force those thoughts out of my mind. My attitude was to let them wash over me. I was asked after my round on Saturday how many times I had closed my eyes and imagined walking up the 18th fairway in the lead and with the roar of the crowd. I tried to steer the conversation away from that, and I answered that I focused on playing the holes before 18 well to set up that walk up the last fairway to the green. But really, I went much further back as I readied myself for the last round.
Nicely done with the long
I thought about the tee shot at the
sitting
first hole.
at 5 under for the round.
Still, thoughts of winning the Masters did flit through my mind, and sometimes for a minute or two.
Nice solid birdie on that last hole. We got another birdie in the works here.
Was I about to become the youngest golfer to win the Masters? Would winning create opportunities in golf for minorities, as many people were suggesting? What would winning mean to the black golfers before me who had suffered in a world where the color of their skin mattered to people and in which they didn't have the opportunities I had, not even close? Would winning a golf tournament, even the Masters, really have the social significance that was predicted?
Hit some sand here.
The only way we would find out was if I went out and stuck to my game plan and won that green jacket. I started the final round at 3:08, which has always been right around the time the leader begins. That meant I had to play 4 straight rounds in mid-afternoon, wire to wire. That's unusual, but Augusta repaired the players after the first round, and because I'd recovered and shot 70, I was going to be in one of the last half dozen or so twosomes on Friday. I had a lot of time on my hands every day. I always played very early in pro-ams, usually first off, and if I had my choice, I would have played early in the tournament rounds. But, of course, that's not the way tournament golf worked. If you were playing early on the weekend, you weren't doing well. Playing late left a lot of time. There was no television coverage of the Masters until mid-afternoon, so it wasn't as if I could see how the guys were doing and maybe get a read on how the course was playing. Butchie and I made sure, as always, that my last shot on the range was the one I wanted to hit on the first tee. As I was practicing some chipping before the round, I spotted Lee Elder. He had flown up to Atlanta with his wife, Rose, from their home in Florida, and then driven to Augusta. He wished me well for the round, and that made me even more determined to take care of business. I had been thinking about Lee and Grandpa Charlie and Ted Rhodes on Saturday night. Later, I learned that Augusta staff members, many of them African Americans, came out to the oak tree on the lawn near the first tee to watch me start. Other staff members were also there. It was time for me to do something at the Masters that had never been done before. The thought crossed my mind as I approached the first tee, and then it slipped away. I had fallen into my bubble of concentration. I was wearing my red shirt, which I always wore on Sundays in tournaments, a superstition that started with my mom. Every day in Thai tradition is represented by a color, and red is for Sunday. Red is one of Mom's colors, and she wanted me to wear it, although I had proven to her that I could win with different colors. When I won a junior tournament while wearing red, Mom said, "See, you play better when you wear red." During the next tournament I won, I wore blue, but when I wore red, I always seemed to win by more strokes. When I got to the 94 U.S. Amateur at Sawgrass, I didn't have any red shirts because I'd forgotten to bring one. So I thought that maybe orange would work in its place. I came from 6 down in the last match to win. Then, ironically, the colors of the 3 schools I was looking at, University of Nevada, Las Vegas, Arizona State, and Stanford, were all red. We wore black shorts and red shirts at Stanford. They were our final day colors. How could I argue with Mom? The red shirt I was wearing in my final round did have some black in it.
Okay, so we have about 115 yards,
or it was supposed to, anyway.
To the pin.
I could sense the anticipation in the massive gallery as I hit a few putts before going to the first tee. All eyes were on me. I felt a powerful current of support. To many in the gallery, I'm sure, I was an object of curiosity, not only because of my skin color, but also because of how I had played for the first 3 rounds, and the lead I had. My comfort level was high as I waited on the first tee for my name to be called. My first tee shot mirrored my last tee shot on the range. It flew over the bunker on the right side and left me a wedge into the green.
Birdie.
I 2-putted for par. No stress, no sweat. I took the bunker on 2 out of play and hit my driver over that and caught the downslope. That left me an 8-iron into the green. I 2-putted for birdie. This was just the start I wanted. Pars on 3 and 4 kept me still 9 shots ahead of Costantino. It didn't look like he was going to make mistakes. He hit his baby cut out there, what I would call a shrimp little low cut, which was perfect. Every shot was solid, but I had a big enough cushion that I wouldn't allow him to put any heat on me if I kept to my game plan. He couldn't have been any more pleasant to play with, giving me complimentary nods and gestures. He didn't speak a lot of English, but his gestures were their own language. I played the Sunday singles match against him later that year in the Ryder Cup, and he spanked me pretty good.
Here we go.
Costantino was a very good player. Golfers remembered when he came to the last hole at the 1995 Open at St. Andrews, needing to birdie the hole to get into a playoff against John Daly. His drive came up just short of the green, but he then chunked a long chip shot from the Valley of Sin. The ball came back nearly to his feet, 65 feet from the hole. The tournament looked over. But Costantino chose a putter for his 3rd shot and holed it for the birdie he needed.
Nice.
He got down to the ground after the ball fell, pounding the turf in exhilaration. He and Daly went out for the 4-hole playoff that is used in the Open.
Okay,
Daly
we're sitting
won,
at around
but Costantino
110
had
yards
come to the golf world's attention. His reaction to holding the shot that got him into the playoff became part of golfing lore. I couldn't imagine a better guy to have with me in the last twosome at the Masters. My first bogey in 38 holes came at the 5th, where I hit wedge over the green and into the back bunker. The rhythm on my swing was slightly off, and as soon as I hit it, I knew that my approach into the green was going to be too long. I had too much speed at the bottom and hit the ball too far. I twisted my body left as soon as I finished my swing because I knew I'd made a mistake. Maybe I was too fired up. It was a wake-up call because while I felt calm, I was also feeding off the adrenaline of leading in the final round. The adrenaline came on the course, never on the range, and so I needed to make sure that Fluff and I were aware of this when we were picking clubs. Meanwhile, I had very little green to work with because the hole was cut toward the back of it. I opened up my 60-degree wedge and hit a shot that was about as good as I could do from there. But I still left myself 10 feet past the hole and missed that. Costantino made par and picked up a shot. I was 8 ahead. The fairways were lined with spectators surrounding every green. It had been that way all week, but this time I could sense an air of expectancy. I could hear people saying things like, "Great playing,
all right,
keep it going,"
13-footer here.
While my ears were almost ringing from people saying, "Tiger, Tiger," as I walked up the fairways. I acknowledged them quietly with the tip of my cap, and I tried not to look at anybody directly. It was as if I was looking at a portrait of thousands, where I couldn't make out distinguishing features of any one person. I knew Mom was following every shot, but I didn't see her.
So that'll keep you at
She's
4
only about
under
5
for the
feet
round.
tall, but I doubt I'd have spotted her if she were taller. I also didn't see Phil Knight from Nike or Lee Elder, who was following me on the front nine.
Got the
I was looking at a haze of humanity. I saw only the hole I was playing and felt only the shots I had in mind. The pin was back right on the shelf at the 6th hole. What a great hole. You're way above the green, and spectators you can't see are sitting on the hill below the tee. It was breezy, which made it hard to pick a club. The hole was playing 188 yards. Costantino hit first after his par on the 5th against my bogey and came up short and right, and he grunted. He was an expressive golfer. I hit what I thought was a pretty good shot, along a line to the right side of the green. Fluff sensed that it might come up short of the shelf. Be there, he said, as the ball was in the air. It was there, but not all the way there, and finished just on the fringe. I left myself a 35-foot uphill putt, with the last part being up to the shelf. I two-putted for par, while Costantino bogeyed after coming up 8 feet short on his chip shot. I was again 9 shots ahead. But I pulled my 2-iron tee shot on the 7th hole into the trees. The trunk of one of the trees was on a direct line to the green, and other trees meant I couldn't put the ball in the air and try to carry the bunkers in front of the green. I had an opening between a couple of trees, but toward the fairway. Here came a field shot. Yardage didn't matter. I set my hands ahead of the club head, footed the blade, and hit a low hook that finished in the front middle bunker. I left myself a brutal angle to the hole, and while I hit a good shot over the high lip, it was nearly impossible to get the ball close. I left myself an 8-footer for par and missed that. So now I'd bogeyed 2 of the last 3 holes. Golf's that way. I thought I was in total control, felt in command of my game, my emotions, and my thoughts, and then, just like that, things were getting away from me. Costantino parred the 7th, and so I was back to 8 shots ahead of him. I wasn't worried, but I was paying attention. It felt as though the ghost of Norman in '96 was there, but it hadn't gotten close. That helped, or at least I thought it did, after I hit a big drive into the middle of the 8th fairway, opposite the bunker and at its far end. I could reach the green from there, and Fluff and I decided a 4-iron was the right club. But just like on my drive on 7, I pulled the shot, and it finished in the rough just short of the pine straw and the trees and about 35 yards from the hole. I had a clear shot to the green, but had to come over a big hump on my line. The smart shot was a chip and run with my pitching wedge, and it came off exactly